Welcome to another pepisode. Welcome to another episode of the Players Ball Podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens. I'm your host, Alex Great. I'm joined by my brother from another mother in his Rome Braves, the Rome Emperor's hat.
Yes, sir.
That are inspired, man. But yeah, we're back for another episode, man. We're gonna give y'all some more content, sports content. A lot going on. A lot of times the summer is a bit dry, especially when your baseball team is ass. But
That's putting it nice.
they've helped us out this week. Shout out Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes for dropping the quarterback. So we're gonna actually give y'all a little bit of review on that and hootie hoo. But let's start with some highways and byways and get y'all updated on some other things that are going on in the world of sports.
We got traffic incoming, covering all the biggest news in ATL sports, no matter the lane, no matter the highway. Let's get into it with Spaghetti Junction.
I don't think for copyright reasons, can I say worldwide world of sports, worldwide web of sports? What is it called? What's
Um,
ESPN's little thing?
world worldwide sports. I don't know.
Wide world of
I think
sports.
it's
All
wide
right.
world of sports. Yes, sir.
All right. Shout out the big dog Disney for not taking our episode down when we say that. Please. Fingers crossed. But yeah, man. So there was something interesting that caught my eye. It actually happened a couple of weeks ago during the College World Series, and we talked about it. Women's sports are on the come, right? Women have always been good at sports. They participated in sports a lot, but from a national media circumstance, they haven't gotten a lot of shine. Um, for good or for worse, thinking of basketball in my head. For better or for worse. Product has not been what it is. It's much improved today, but the product has not been comparable to the NBA, in my humblest of opinions. But there was this phenomenon that I saw, and it's I was like, why the yellow ball? I put that in the show notes, and I'm sure you didn't know any idea what that was until I explained it. But softball is huge. And I found out over the weekend that it's really big here in Georgia. Like women's professional softball is a thing here. And I'm gonna start digging to get some more content on that to talk about it. But considering that, why is the softball big and yellow?
I have no idea. Is just the short of it. But before I dive into, I guess, the crux of your question, my initial reaction when I hear why the yellow ball, I start thinking Savannah Bananas, which also
Hmm.
play with a yellow baseball. And they do it for a reason to uh, kind of distinguish themselves as something different, right? And they want to create this league of banana ball, which is the the rules in which they play. You know, the Savannah Bananas obviously were the originators, but they have the party animals, and they've got a handful of other teams, and they're just trying to kind of create a new form of baseball entertainment. Now, I don't think that's what softball was going for when they decided to use a big yellow ball.
Mm.
Um, I think it is an interesting question. Like, why did they adapt the game of baseball to be so far different than the men's game for women, right? Because when you look at women's basketball, there is a difference in the diameter of the ball, the weight of the ball, but the court is still the same dimensions, right? The game is still played within the same rules,
10
right?
foot
Like
goals.
a two pointer is 2 points, a three ball is three, right? Like they didn't really change big aspects of the game, whereas softball, right, you got the bigger ball, but the pitching mound is closer to the
The diamond
play.
smaller. Yeah.
The the entire field is smaller, the bats are different, the gloves are different. Like it's entirely different game. Now they play 9 innings, 3 outs, 3 strikes, 4 balls. Like all of that is the same, but beyond that, the game is very different. And it is an interesting question.
Yeah, just to comment on your comment, the Savannah Bananas and the Yellow Balls, I never really peeped that. They are still made by Wilson, but I was wondering if I could find quickly if they had like more pop to them, like they were built for long ball activity, and I didn't see that in my quick little shuffle. So we'll have to look that up another day. Like, are they juiced? I actually see the article now, but I won't. It's actually a YouTube video, so I can't go into it. But with the yellow ball, I kind of when I first saw it, I was like, it took me back to my days of my youth playing baseball, and my sister was a big softball player for a while, like at least 3 or 4 years she played softball, and I remember that big yellow ball, and it's like whereas basketball they shrunk the size of the basketball. I would imagine, and I'm pretty sure, I'm accurate in this because women's hands are smaller than men's hands, right? You need a ball where it's easier for them to do the same things like in and outs, the finger rolls, finesse with a smaller hand, you give them a smaller ball. But in softball, they went the complete opposite way. It's bigger, it's yellow. It almost feels like a slap in the face. Like, nah, women can't see. They damn sure can't hit. Let's give them a beach ball. And I don't think that that's the case. And it's just curious to me that they would do that because if they do want to ever get to a national league, it would feel like the more similarities they have to the existing game, the better. Like, don't it feels like they're underselling it, and I don't know why they would do that. I wouldn't think that women have less vision on average than a man.
So perception is interesting because I know, like, automatically there is that perceived, oh, the ball's bigger, it's got to be easier to hit, right? They have a longer bat, like the meat of the bat is longer, it's got to be easier to hit. But I think that's a fallacy. Um, when you look at the time the ball takes to get from the mound to the plate, because it is a shorter distance, the speed, like the adjusted speed of a softball is faster than a baseball. Like the reaction time for a hitter in softball is way faster than a baseball. And I've always really enjoyed, yeah,
Mm,
you can look up. You can look it up.
no way.
You can look it
So
up.
softball pitch, say at like 70, because of the distance from the mound to the plate, is faster than 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yes. That is what I'm saying, but I'm not saying those specific numbers because I
Okay.
actually think your softball pitchers are throwing faster than that. Um, but that is what I'm saying. The time it takes for the ball to get from the pitcher's hand to the plate is shorter in professional softball than in professional baseball.
And I
Prob
know that ball does have some gas on it, but I'm just thinking like
and
it's not at a
and there
hundred.
are probably some extremes because not every pitcher is out here throwing 100 miles an hour, right? Like there's a handful of guys, even in the MLB, that regularly top 100.
100 is the top of the food chain.
Yeah,
What we're thinking like 94. That's about average.
yeah. So,
90, 93, 94.
but we can do the
But that,
research.
yeah, we'll do the research. We won't have to dig into it now, but I think that's curious. We definitely gonna have to figure out that answer, and you guys got to come back next week to check that out.
Uh, I always enjoy it, and there's a bunch of people out on the internet that do this, but they take like a college uh level baseball player, college level softball player, and they put them up against each other. The softball player has to hit on a baseball pitcher, and the baseball player has to hit, a softball, you know, from a softball pitcher. And it's always interesting to see how they do, because it's a different experience entirely. And one thing I will say, from what I understand as well, the pitching mechanic, because you're throwing the ball underhand, you're not putting the same stress on the elbow that you
Mm,
do. So the number of injuries in softball is greatly reduced. And I'm specifically talking about like catastrophic arm injuries. um,
Tommy Johns.
correct.
Yeah,
Um, so
I can see that. Yeah, and it's not even like I'm just curious why they didn't stick to the original rules.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
what's the movie? What's the sports movie?
League of Their Own.
League of Their Own, right? They were playing baseball in that, weren't they?
Yes, they were. And it's a
So
real. I mean, it's based on a
it's
true story, right? Like
right, right. So they then adapted the rules to like some man out here.
it was
It's
probably
like let me.
some. I mean,
I'm sure it was a man. That we'll come back with that research now. But I just thought that was curious, and I wanted to open us up with that. Um, but there are other things going on still, surrounding the diamond. We got the home run derby tonight. You let me know some news that I hadn't seen yet, and that our boy Ronnie is not going to be hitting long balls tonight, but he has been replaced by a representative from the A, so that's good.
yeah, Matt Olson. Not only just a representative from the local team, but a hometown kid, played baseball at Parkview in high school. So it's cool seeing a guy who was actually there in 2000, the last time the All Star game was in the A. He was
Mm.
out there, I think, shagging flies, and he'll be hitting home
Oh man,
runs
that's dope.
tonight. And throwing to him is going to be a Braves legend in Eddie Perez. Um, and I do think Matt Olson kind of his swing kind of lends itself to be a good home run derby candidate, right? Like he's all about launch angle and this and that. So while I would have loved to see Ronnie out there competing, I do think Matt Olson will be an interesting replacement and has a decent shot of winning the thing tonight. They did do
He's a
this.
tall dude too, 6'5",
Yes, tall, long swing,
long swing. Yeah, that's what I was
big
getting at.
big launch angle. But they did this out of an abundance of precaution. Ronnie was scratched from game a couple days ago due to some back tightness, and there's no reason for him to be out here just trying to crank homers and risking injury, because he's going to be a extremely important piece as the Braves try to salvage their season in the second half. He did, you know, finish. He played in the last 2 or 3 games before the break against the Cardinals. He did have a home run in those. So I mean, he seems to be okay, but Ronnie is a piece we can't afford to lose, since we've already lost so many others, including Matt, or my guy Austin Riley went down with a injury right before the break, hit that 10 or 15 day IL. So
Have we heard anything about Chris Sale?
I have not, but I think he went on a pretty long term. I think it was like the 60 day IL. So I'll have
There
to do
was
some research on that.
there was a segment on 929 The Game. I guess it was last week, but I missed the front half of it. But they were saying about baseball players how they want to if when they want to be out there, but they might not be allowed to. And his name was in the point of conversation. It was Steak and Sandra were talking about it. And I wanted to see, maybe you had heard that, to see what they were saying, right? Whether he was saying that he wanted to play and they won't let him play, or what happened there. But we'll have to look that up. Yes, it's still been a trash season. Losing the series to the Athletics wasn't good. We almost lost the series, not the season, lost the series to the Cardinals. Had to have a comeback win. They finally start scoring runs, and then the pitching goes to. I mean, obviously, we're down four of our top five, or four of our opening day starters, so it wasn't gonna be great pitching. But the bats come alive for a little bit, and the pitching just goes down the pooper.
We had an
So
opportunity to sweep though,
yeah.
but we
Hmm.
lost yesterday. I don't think we've won a game on Sunday all year. I think I've heard that stat, or it's been a ridiculously long stretch without a win on Sundays. So I guess this team just can't win on the Lord's Day. They just need to stay at home. Um,
Yeah, take that Sabbath, man. Pray on it.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, this season has been rather snake bitten for sure, which was kind of the story last year. It wasn't the wins and losses weren't as bad last year, but the injuries were just as devastating.
Mm,
And I don't know, it's starting to feel like a trend. I will say, in the athletics, we lost that series as you mentioned. We did finally get a win, so we won, and it was the first win we've had in the state of California this year. We were
mm.
0-12 leading up to that. So the West Coast has not been kind to this team. We started the season 0-7, to the the Padres and the Dodgers. So, just
Mhm.
throw this on top of that, and maybe getting that first win will spark something in the second half, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't we play the Giants out there though? I know we lost like 3 of the 4, I believe, but I think we got 1 win against the Giants. Maybe
Uh,
not though. If that's what you saw, I'll take your word on it. Why would I believe anything better about the Braves right now, man?
yeah.
Uh, I know we did buy or sell last week. N- you doing anything? You changing your mind? Are you a buyer or a seller right now? The trade deadline is out another 2 weeks.
I still think you have to buy because you have to set up your future. I think the piece. I mean, the question is what pieces do you have to give up? I think Marcelo Zuna is probably the biggest one because he's got a contract. He's in a contract year, right? And you can continue to
But
roll.
that's selling though, right?
I don't think so because Marcelo has a hip injury that he's been playing through,
Mm,
and he's been pretty bad lately. He did finally get a home run the other day, but it had been a long time, a very bad stretch. And you still have Sean Murphy that can catch and Drake Baldwin that can DH. And you can kind of rotate those guys, DHing it and catching, and pick up, I think, some of that production that you may lose by trading Marcel. But hopefully, with Marcel, you can get some bullpen pieces because that's part of the problem. Yes, the bats have been, cold, but we're also, giving up 6 runs a game.
hmm And
So
we weren't before, right? When we had starting pitching, the bats were just icy, like
yeah,
the most frigid of winters was happening in that batter's box.
yeah,
Jerrickson's looked like he's been decent over the last 7 games. He's hitting 300 plus, 323, one
yeah.
home run.
He's been better than I expected in his return.
Yeah, yeah. El Patron, that's his nickname, according to Braves.com, MLB.com/Braves.
Mm,
Yeah, so I know the Ronnie's gonna make an appearance in the All-Star game still, so which will be a lot limited. That always is limited so that they can get everybody in and out. So he'll still get to represent in front of the home crowd, which is nice. But I understand pulling him out of the home run derby.
yep. But you know, we didn't do an episode last week, and we normally do an elevators like a high and low of the week, and one of my highs, which was also my low, is that we're just another day closer to either football or even basketball. Just another day closer to the end of this terrible season.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Nah, I can get behind that.
and with that, the Hawks have summer league going on right now, and there's a lot to be hopeful for, right? Ansa Sala and the front office have actually done a lot this off season. And it seems like they're really kind of going for it. It's uncharacteristic for an Atlanta team, right? Especially the Hawks, to really go for it on this level. So, um, it's interesting keeping up with the summer league performances. I know, like, you're not going to see Trey, you're not going to see Kristaps Porzingis, but even like through the draft and some of these guys that we've drafted in recent years, getting to see their progression has been interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. It looks like the game that they're playing right now is in OT, 43 seconds left, 108. I would say, as my high last week, I told you about an article that I found. CBS Sports has been mentioned a lot of times on this podcast. I'm not a fan. They're part of the big media that hates Atlanta that I'm always subscribing. But I'll mention your name, Sam Quinn. He wrote an article called NBA Offseason Grades for Every East Team. One team aces the summer, and he buried the lead with that. But surprise, surprise. Celtics, Knicks, and B tier and Bulls confused. The team that aced the summer with an A plus, he gave the Atlanta Hawks. He actually said he didn't know how much Landry Fields was doing in free agency beforehand, but did acknowledge that his last year at the helm, he did draft Ricochet, which looks like that's going to work out well, and then he traded for Dyson Daniels, so he gave him love for that. But what he hyped on is that they are finally building a team around Trey Young as the centerpiece, which when you have a player like Trey Young who's averaging, I went through a big aside. I went through the top 100. Bleacher Report dropped the top 100 all-time NBA players. And I went through the whole list. A lot of it was just like looking at their numbers. A lot of players I read, so I probably read like the bio of like 20 players. Um, but looking at everybody's numbers, Trey Young got mentioned in bios, multiple bios, as like he was mentioned in John Stockton's, he was mentioned in Nikola Jokic bio for just his assist abilities, and how many people have averaged like this amount over so many years, or how many people have ever done that, right? So he's in famed company. But you have to build around that. You can't expect that to be enough. And this is the first year they've actually went out and built around it. Now it has, some asterisks around it. I wouldn't even say that they're going all in, right? Because all the moves they made feel pretty safe, right? They didn't like throw the bag at anybody in particularly. With Nikhil Alexander Walker, right? He's a great player, serviceable player, and his deal is fair based on the salaries that are going out there today. They did a 1 year for the sharpshooter. Well, I can't think of my man's name.
Luke, um,
Yeah, Luke Kennard, right? And then they brought in Chris Snaps for Zingas, he's not an expiring contract this year, or maybe he
I think
is.
he is. He's on
This,
a 1 year.
yeah, he's expiring contract this year, so you're only tied to him for a year, and if it works, you're gonna pay him because his ability is renowned, right? They called him a unicorn for a reason. He has shot blocking potential. He can also open it up and shoot the three. He shoots above 40%. So they're finally building a team around Trey. I'm happy for that. But to get this A at CBS Sports, that would have been my high, right? Because I always have to trash them for trashing us. So shout out Sam Quinn. I know that was a long diatribe, man. I had to get that out, bro.
I mean, I think it's fair to make some, I don't want to call them criticisms, but at least you categorized the summer as being safe, and I think it's a fair assessment. But I also think that just because you're quote unquote safe doesn't mean you're going all in. Like, you don't have to throw a bag at somebody all willy nilly to be going all in. I know people think of poker. You're putting all the chips in, and you're taking this
Literally.
giant risk. But I think you can still be pushing because I do think there's more to come, right? Like I don't think this team is done, right? I think there's still a piece to be moved, but all of the pieces, like all of the chess pieces have been leading up to, checkmate for the king, right? Like they're going all in that regard of like being very strategic and moving the pieces around very wisely. Uh,
I'm a fan of all the moves. I think the A plus is accurate, and I say safe not as a slight, but just as a more like an adjective, right? It was safe in the sense that instead of Kristaps Porzingis, you could have threw the bag at Miles Turner, right, and had to lock up 4 years of almost max money, right? But with Kristaps Porzingis, you got an expiring contract with somebody who should be able to do the same level of things, maybe better in certain aspects, but you're not tied to him long term. I'm really talking about dollars when I talk about safety more
yeah,
than anything. But they were active, and that is the part that I'm very happy about.
I think that's fair. But I like to me, I really appreciate the flexibility, right? Like you don't trap yourself into this long term, and I don't want to like spoil the conversation moving forward, but what comes to mind is Kirk Cousins, right? Like you threw
Mhm.
$180 million at this guy for 4 years. Um, and I mean, the book has not been written, right? The first chapter is really what's over, but it looks like that deal is going to be at a net loss for the team and kind of an hindrance on our ability to move forward in the immediate, right? Like we're still going to have to wait and still have some of that pain moving forward with the Hawks, right? If the KP situation doesn't work out this year, right? Like you're not tied to him long term.
Yeah, nah, yeah, and you're absolutely right. I'm not. I wouldn't have wanted that Miles Turner deal or a longer term deal. I told you the players that I trade for. Shame on me. Big Z is still on the brain, but they didn't offload a ton of picks to get anybody. They didn't. That's what, to mortgage the house. I did not want them to do that, but when I think all in, that's what I'm thinking. Like pushing all the chips in. Like, all right, we got the Boston Celtics should be, out of it. The Indiana Pacers should be out of it. Let's go and win a championship. I think they definitely set up themselves nicely to compete while not leveraging the future. Actually, they made their future better. One of the points that Mr. Sam Quinn made in the article that really influences A plus was getting that unprotected pick next year that may end up being, top three, maybe even one, right? In a draft where you got Cameron Boozer, who's the other guy? He mentioned names that I knew. Um,
I think you mentioned him on one of our recent podcasts, right? It's all the legacy guys.
he's the only one that was mentioned in this article. I pulled it back up. Is AJ Debansa. I've heard his name. I don't know Darren Peterson. Um, but he says includes three number one overall top caliber prospects, and the last one was Cameron Boozer. So I did mention Cameron Boozer. We mentioned Carmelo's son, um, Gilbert Arenas' son. Yeah, we did talk about those legacy players, and they're gonna. I think a lot of those guys are gonna be cold. But as far as the big three, those are the ones that he named. And if we could get one of those guys to slide in where we have it now, brother, you don't have to pay him. I mean, they're gonna get top three money, but that fits well with the salary cap as opposed to giving somebody max money and you get to control them for 4 years. So
Yeah. Just to circle all the way back around to the original conversation, I did see one criticism for Ansa, and it was when the draft went down, when some of this free agency was going down, and they're having conversations with other teams. They basically said Kobe Buffkin was off limits, and the criticism I saw was a particular sports writer saying that he kind of showed his hand too much, and that we still are in need of a backup point guard. And so there was just a little bit of um, criticism there that just said, like, Kobe Buffkin hasn't been available to us. He's been pretty much a disappointment. But, you know, the front office was not willing to move him. And now we're in, summer league. We're a game, maybe two at this point, into it.
Two games. Yeah.
And Kobe Buffkin has been one of the bright spots on this team, and looks like he's poised to be that backup for Trey that we've been missing. And so if he can prove to be that, that would be a big win for this team, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, nah, 100%. So the game is over. The Hawks won in overtime, 111 to 108. Kobe Buxton dropped 25, right? And when you see what I look to see out of a summer league performance is that you're above and beyond everybody. If you're dropping 25 in a game, generally you're above and beyond everybody. Like I heard Cooper Flash getting shut down. He dropped 31. In his first game, I think Kobe Buxton dropped 31. Right now, he's an older player. He should be balling on these young fellas that are coming in, right? These 19, 20-year olds. So it's good that he is showing out. But a non-negotiable. That's kind of crazy. Like, what does the rest of the league see? I guess they see what's happening in the summer league now, but I wonder what they were trying to give us for Kobe Buffkin because I mean,
Yeah, I don't
you
know,
said
but
it was a I would say it's a bad draft pick at this point, kind of almost a bust, right? The amount of games that he's played, you can get anything for him. You take that bag, brother. So I'm curious of that. That's gonna drive me crazy. I wonder what he passed up on for Kobe Buffkin.
I'll have to go back and look at it. But I kind of recall that it was part of the Kristaps Porzingis trade discussion.
Mm,
So, but anyways, I do think he's at least in a limited amount of time. He's having a decent summer league. For me, I want to see efficiency above points, right? Like, just be efficient with the ball, shoot high percentages, right? Move the ball around. I do think Asa Newell, he was our draft pick. I think he's had a decent showing too. I think he dropped
mhm.
18 in his first game, which I believe was, I think his first game statistically was better than Cooper Flag. Um, but
I think you're
uh,
thinking of Jacob Toppin. So he has looked good. He had some highlights in the first game. This game that they just finished, he had 14 points, 6 boards. I was curious to see if he had any defensive stats, but I didn't see any. Versus the Heat in their first summer league game, he had 8 points,
uh,
but he did have 8 boards, 2 steals, right? And he didn't shoot it super efficiently. Neither did Kobe Buffkin though. He went 6 for 16. He had 15 points at the free throw line where he went 100%. So he was getting to the cup at a heavy clip. But Jacob Toppin is who scored that 19 in the first game, 19 and 10, and then he put in another 12 today. So Obi's little brother looked like he might have some juice. He might make the team. When I was watching the highlights from the game, I saw double zero. I was like, "Who is that? They balling." And kind of find out it is Obi Toppin or not Obi Toppin, Jacob Toppin, who was doing that. But I'm pumped about Asa Newell. I don't think that they could have drafted a better player for Trey Young for what he can do, especially since he's a dog. You know what I'm saying? We gonna get some of that dog's not necessarily winning culture from basketball, but football spirit got to go to the rest of the university at some point. So we're gonna go ahead and try to be an early adopter in that and be the Eagles of the NBA. We can get him in. We'll get Dominique's son in next year after his freshman year. Man, we go from there. Another person though is Nikolai Jurisic. We drafted him second round last year, and we both looked at him. Right, he seemed like he was gonna be pretty fire. He gets hurt in summer league, and they shut him down for most of the year. He came back and played a little bit of the G League, but he looks like he's gonna be a hooper too. So that'd be nice. He's long. He's like 6'8", 6'9". can shoot the lights out. So that's encouraging too, man. Go Hawks, man. It's been a long time since I've been able to like. I really threw in some chips on the DJ Murray trade just because it was the first big thing they had done in a very long time. They gave up a lot of first round picks, but I was hoping that that would work out. We had a legit shooting guard, but they play too similar a style of basketball. We've talked about that in nauseam, so we won't go into it. But this felt like the best off season for the Hawks in a very, 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 very long time, and I'm encouraged.
100%, 150%. And it's the first time like I can confidently just take all that heat from your boy Theo. You know, the the supreme Hawks hater.
Yeah,
Um and,
yeah, that's it.
and throw it back at him because the expectations are set, right? Like the Hawks should be in the conversation, and all that noise that, you know, comes from Theo we can take cuz we can we have a strong rebuttal.
Yeah, finally. They gave us something to fight back with.
Yeah.
Before, he's like, "Ah, you're just a fan." And I throw Trey Young numbers at him, but he just ignores that. He is who he is, and we love him still. Um, all right, man. So we previewed at the top of the episode, but let's talk about some hootie hoo.
From the gridiron to the hardwood, you know you got to keep your eyes on the birds. Let's talk Hawks. Let's talk Falcons. This is Hootie Hoo.
So quarterbacks is back. Great show. I love to see the behind the scenes, see that these guys are, living a life of not necessarily the average man, but they have life off of the field. That's something that I think is lost on people, myself included. Right? Like, damn man, why aren't you doing more to improve? It's like, oh no, you do have a family, you got a wife, or you might have some kids. Um, that take up time that they deserve, right? So the quarterback is a good window into that. Featured again for the second time is Mr. Kirk Cousins. So the first time he was on there was with Minnesota. I really liked his personality. I thought he was a real likable guy. He's a cornball, but that's endearing to a certain extent. And I think just staying in that lane, I think who he presented in the second season is still a likable guy. Uh, though I didn't make it there. I finished the first four episodes, but I understand that it gets a little bit shadier during the Saints game, or at least that's what they were saying on the radio.
I think the talk I'm through 7 episodes. I've seen, pretty much the whole thing. Um I think the media, the local media that have talked about it are overblowing it a little bit, and I'm really
What
curious.
what aspect specifically? Because I think I know what you're talking about, but I want them to know as far as
Um, in terms of like wanting to say there was some shadiness or whatever, that
okay, yeah.
I think Kurt was very honest and genuine in his talking about a few real, I don't even want to call them controversial issues because they shouldn't be controversial, but the media wants them to be because they need a story. But those things have to do with the Michael Penix selection in the first round, and then the other big one is his injury that occurred during the Saints game, and then the third one is ultimately the decision to move on um, from him last year and to start Michael Penix. Uh,
So quickly, the second one, the injury. That's the one that I heard the most about. Um, and I got a question for you. Having seen it, they were obviously there's two sides to every story. Sandra was saying she was on, and I think she was talking with Sandra believes that it was on Raheem Morris. Stake says that it was on Kirk Cousins. If you had to put blame, and it's unfair, but if you had to pick one of those two to blame for him being in as the starter for too long, Was it Kirk Cousins not truly revealing the severity of his injury, or was it Raheem Morris not benching him?
Man, I really want to fault those guys equally to a degree.
That's fair.
I do think if I had to lean one way or another, I have to put a little bit more blame on Kurt.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not.
Okay.
It's okay. So my reasoning is not because um I think Kirk Cousins is a dishonest person, because he's clearly not, right? Like, he's clearly very honest. But as a player in the National Football League and all of the through I think Marcus Mariota is probably the only quarterback that they featured on this show that doesn't mention this, and he may even mention it, but you take a lot of hits, you take a lot of abuse. There's very few games that you go into where your body feels 100%, right? Like, there's a part of this recent season, not to spoil too much, but Jared Goff gets a ankle rolled in a game and he plays through it, and his wife says, like, I have to ask him sometimes if he's okay, and he's of course going to tell me he's okay, and I'm like, but are you really? And I think
Hmm.
this is a case for Kirk Cousins, not being more self-aware that, like, this was more than just um the bumps and bruises that you get, just from playing in the National Football League, that this was a little bit more severe. But he does mention later in the series, when he does eventually get benched, that, looking at it in hindsight, or retrospect, does he regret the decision to not, I guess, be more vocal about how severely he was hurt. And he mentions a book by Drew Brees, in which Drew Brees basically says that his goal was to never let his backup see the field, because it's a
Mm.
business and there's a certain level of insecurity. And the fear is that if you let Michael Penix get the ball in week 10, that's it. That's a wrap. Like, you're not getting the ball back. And so, to me, that level of insecurity, and then just that lack of being real with yourself on how badly you're hurt, and seeing how it impacted the performance, right? Like, Kurt recognized, and he wavers in the show on, like, how much of that injury impacted his performance on the field. Well, in the very next game, it was a lot, and as things progressed, I'm sure his body felt a little better, but you're also taking the wear of a 18-week season, and so you're naturally not going to be as sharp as you were, typically week one. But he mentioned, having trouble getting the ball there, um, getting the same amount of zip on his throws, right? Like, he recognized to some degree that it was hindering his performance. So,
There was a just to talk about one of the other quarterbacks as it relates to this, like Joe Burrow's season last year ended for a wrist injury, and I'm sure it wasn't as severe as Kirsch, but you could see him on the sideline, like trying to go, throwing it, and not being able to flick like the ball is literally falling out of his hand as he tries to make that middle of the throw. Um, I don't, I haven't gotten there with Kirk. I'll tell you, I woke up last night, and he was mentioning like how he goes through these spurts in his career. Well, he'll get a little bit turnover happy. So to me, I hadn't made it to his injury talk, or I had just missed it, so I turned it off. But to see Joe Burrow, who's one of the best in the game, not be able to do it, kind of recognize it pretty early on and sit it down. I guess maybe he's younger that and he is the incumbent, right?
I also think
I
that
don't know.
it's a
I
different.
could kind of see Kirk.
I I think it's a different scenario, right? Because Kirk could still grip the ball. Like, he wasn't hurt so bad that he couldn't perform at all, right? It
But
was
he couldn't
just
deliver passes accurately, and he didn't have the depth. He didn't. You mentioned he didn't have any zip on his ball, and if your ball is a duck, it gets picked off, which he got it picked off 9 times in a 4-game span. There was some ducks out there, and that's why I was surprised that you said Kirk because, well, one, you've seen more episodes, right? I'm only through 4, so you
I
have
do.
more to go by, but Ross should have set him down.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
not the
no, for
Saints
sure.
game, but after, like, the 2nd loss, Kirk gotta sit down. He had to see it. Everyone else saw it.
Yeah, and that's why like I couldn't not like my gut instinct wanted to give them equal blame, right?
Yeah,
And that's where, as a head coach, Raw is responsible. But I also see, and you don't get a lot from Raheem in the show because we're not getting, basically one-on-one interviews. You're getting, press conference clips and stuff like that. Maybe a little more than that, but not by much. And Raw does mention around the time that the decision was made to bench Kurt, it was that, early in the season, right? And this is probably the most maddening part and the thing that I had forgot. Like I guess I mentally just brushed off the emotional roller coaster that was last year's football season.
yeah.
Um but they were just Raw mentions how the team rallied around Kurt up until that Saints game, right? Like up until the point that his arm gets hit. The team was riding a high. Kurt was playing really well. The team as a whole was playing really well. And so I think they're they felt without knowing well, maybe they knew, but without taking the severity of the injury into effect, they thought, you know, we're gonna ride this out. Kurt's just going through a little something and he's gonna pull out of it, right? Like the team rallied around him and we're gonna get that juice, we're gonna get that spark back. And the unfortunate reality was it never came back and it just steadily got worse.
Cliff dove. Because you could see the crowd, at least, being at the games, and you went to that Bucks game, that overtime win where he eventually he's out there, right? That's something we saw in the stadium. We saw him doing. They just showed Kurt on the big screen, swagging, surfing, right? The city was on a high. Being at 6-3, man, that's just a place we haven't been in a long time. So to kind of trick that off is incredibly disappointing. And I wanted to blame Ron Moore, but I think I'm more inclined to go with your statement. Option C. It's probably a bit of both. And we can't live in the past. That season is over, but the quarterback definitely has some insight. The other thing that came out that I saw, we worried after the first couple of games whether Kirk was still hurt. And it feels like after watching a couple of those episodes that the playbook was just a bit more complicated than he was used to with all the motions and the play actions and the pre-snap stuff. Like to see that it was him, yeah, obviously I saw the fumble, but to see that it was because he moved his foot too soon, and then the man takes off and knocks the ball out of his hand. Like to see that that was on him was telling, right? He going into a new system. That's something that I think Matt Ryan dealt with a good deal, right? Just having new offensive coordinators coming in and having to relearn offenses. I never really attached that much credence to the offensive coordinator having a different philosophy outside of we gonna pound the rock or we gonna air it out. I know that there's definitely some subtleties between those, but it seems like Zach Robinson is running a scheme that's just like super complex. Like I think they mentioned Mike McDaniel's how like the Dolphins there's constantly pre-snap motion just to keep the defense on their toes to throw them off. I thought that was pretty eye opening too.
Yeah, and that is something that I do personally look at and I put blame on Raw. And the reason I do is because he has this philosophy regarding the preseason where Kurt didn't see the field, right?
Right.
And you got a new quarterback in a new system with minimal amount of uh
Game
experience,
action.
right? Game
Yeah.
action. Um and he didn't get any action in the preseason. And those are the types of things that you work out and you have happen in a preseason game that's meaningless instead of week one in a big time game, right?
Yeah.
So
Who you think Penn is gonna play this preseason?
no, absolutely not.
He won't.
The
Will
question,
Kirk?
yeah, that's the question. So I don't want to spoil a whole lot for you or for our listeners, but it's really interesting to see how Kurt responded to being benched.
Mm,
Um, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of his wife, but I also like I'm somewhat empathetic. Like it's we've had the conversation before. Like these people live in a completely different realm of majority of people. So there's a level of detachment with reality. Like their reality isn't true
right.
reality. But there's a conversation where she's talking about Kurt having like the most difficult experience of his career, having that conversation with Raheem, and I'm like, you played like crap. Like most people get fired if they don't perform at their job. You're still getting paid $180 million. It's hard to have a whole lot of sympathy. But she does say that, he came home and he sat in the garage and she went out there to check on him and he was on the phone calling Michael and basically telling Michael that it was his job and how she really was amazed by his character in how
Mm,
he did that. And I like the way she put it, I feel like I mean, they're both very corny, but I'm also like it is a very amazing um professional like most human beings I think at least in our day and age wouldn't have the stones to do what Kirk Cousins did,
mm.
and that's call the man that's taking your job and congratulate them and offer your hand and guidance. And you see him in practice. Now, the first practice after being benched, Kurt's like, "Man, I haven't been on scout team in 10 years," and you could tell it was like a very weird experience for him. But he was doing his best uh, to really coach up or um, be there as a teammate, as a good teammate for the rest of them, which is also why this stuff that's happened since the season ended with some media controversies with Kurt are just still so shocking to me. Um, I don't know if they're, we've talked about it, publicity stunts meant to try to gain leverage or force ownership or the GM's hand to move them, or what. But
What are you talking about?
so like the I think it was at the NFL what do you call it, the Pro Bowl
Honors?
weekend or honors,
Yeah,
where he covered up the Falcons jersey, the
yeah, yeah.
conversation is about the injuries, um just the slights here and there, the conversation with Arthur Blank that was publicized about wanting to be moved.
What about the fact that the episode like this was coming? I didn't know that he was filming a second season of the quarterback, right? So all this information was gonna hit the air at some point or another. I do think there was some gamesmanship in the sense that he was probably trying to force his hand and force their hand and get out of there. But I've stood on this that I don't think that that's indicative of his character or bad. Right? It is a business. If it's a business for the organization, it's got to be a business for you too. Um, but I do think that that's interesting that you So do you think there's any credence there? Maybe he was just trying to get ahead of it before the world sees it because he knew the Netflix stuff was coming out.
Maybe. But there was also talk, right? Like the first thing I mentioned was his um him saying he felt misled by the organization after the drafting of Michael Penix, and you heard rumblings of that following the draft, right? Like that maybe Kurt was upset and he felt blindsided, this and that. So, like, we did see trickles of this information come throughout the season. Um, but
Yeah,
I think it is an interesting, where the way that he rationalizes the the way he felt misled, right? Like he basically said he had a deal on the table for basically a 1 year in Minnesota, and that they were going to draft a quarterback, and he was looking for something more long term, and that's what we offered him, like a 4 year deal. Um, but he's like, if I had known that the Falcons were going to draft a quarterback year in the same draft, that
high, yeah,
then
high
I
draft pick.
then I would have stayed in Minnesota. And I thought that was kind of an interesting take. Now I did come across Cam Newton's take on this, and had to screenshot it because I don't want to misrepresent or use words that aren't here. Um, but basically, Cam says, if he was on a 1 year deal, maybe I feel bad, but bro, you done brought home $40+ million to sit on the bench. I would be carrying that doggone clipboard around with no stress. Michael Penix would love me. Misled, man, this is a business. They drafted him high because of obvious reasons. I probably would have felt bad if Cousins, didn't make as much money as he did, but you had your opportunity and you didn't perform.
That's accurate.
100%.
Yeah, that's super accurate.
And that's what I was kind of saying earlier when it's like I it's hard to empathize with someone whose situation is completely, like, I get that he wants to continue playing football, wants to be a starter. I get that it's hard to sit down when you feel like you're still capable, right? But you had the opportunity and you floundered it. You were too insecure to reveal the severity of your injury. You let the team down. You let the city down, right? Like, take your lumps.
It was interesting to see Snoop Dogg comment on that, like how he was rocking with Kirk because he came in and embraced the city. Like they showed the side by side of his Minnesota press conference outfit and his Atlanta press conference outfit. He's got like the not emo, but like the hipster hat on, right,
And the
with the
hoodie,
baggy the hoodie, and then he's doing a swag surf. We
yeah,
commented about him going to Waffle House. He did an interview at Waffle House. Yeah, it's ties to the city, so I can appreciate that. But to the sentiment that you're giving, like, I don't think that he was misled. Is probably not a word that I would see as accurate.
yeah. I mean, I definitely understand where he was coming from. Like, okay, if he had this information, maybe it would have um, played into his decision to come here or not, or maybe he still makes the decision to come here, but it's at least something he would have to consider. But you weren't going to be in this situation if it weren't, your injury and your way that you handled it, right? Like,
You definitely weren't going to get 50 million per year in Minnesota, right? Now I know the money is not supposed to be the biggest deal, but like they signed Sam Darnold to a 1 year deal. He would have made more than Sam Darnold, I'm sure, but it would I don't think it would have been the number. Or did he say the numbers were comparable? I think the number in Atlanta per year, along with the additional years, is what sold it.
I
I
think
don't see them paying 1 year 40 million.
I think it was the additional years more than anything that sold him, but he's still going to collect that check here, right? Like, he's still going to make that money for those 3 years, whether he starts or not, or
And
at least a
because of who he is,
guaranteed.
I want him to at some point get one more shot at a starting job somewhere, just not here. I like that he was still hard on himself after the loss, or after the win. they won the game, and he was talking about he learned voice notes from Peyton Manning. He left Rod a voice note. That was the only time we saw Rod. So the other players, they both featured teammates and coaches. Like I saw Ben Johnson for the first time. He spoke. The head coach of the Lions. I can't think of his name right now, but he's prominent. You got the wide receiver, Amara St. Brown on there.
You even have Jamar
Kirk,
Chase in there quite a few
yeah,
times.
Jamar Chase, his family, his mom and dad eating dinner with the Burrows, right? And then they showing that period at LSU and how he called that play, and it's the exact that was dope. That was great filmmaking there. He called the exact play that they did in college, and it worked in the pros. Um, Kirk didn't have anybody on there really, just his wife. Is that a byproduct of coming into a new organization? I think that's it. But what would you think that was?
I think that's kind of a byproduct of who Kirk is, right? Like he's just kind of a family man. Like it is it is work for him, right? Like he's gonna check into the office and then clock out. I mean,
Right.
he kind of says as much later on, because I guess his sons are more into playing football now, and so
Hmm.
he would come home from practice and they would be, playing in the house, and they'd want daddy to play with them, and he's like, after a long day at work, I just kind of want to shut it off, but
Right.
to be a good father, he doesn't. So,
That's
um,
dope.
but
That's dope.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm still a fan of Kirk, man. I want him to have a bright future somewhere. I know we're coming up on time, but that was encouraging. I'm gonna finish it, and we'll do some further analysis on the back half of it.
yeah, I definitely think it's interesting. We have 2 seasons of the quarterbacks, right? You've only had one repeat QB to be featured, as you mentioned. That's Kurt. You've only had one team that's had a repeat feature, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. Uh, Unfortunately, the last one was old Marcus Mariota. Um,
We didn't get many player or team associations with him either. Where with who else is on there? Obviously Kirk, similar stance. Maybe that's just who he
it
is.
was
But
Patrick
Patrick
Mahomes.
Mahomes, we saw his wife, we saw Andy Reid. I don't think we saw Travis Kelsey, but Big Red was on there. And, I remember seeing him.
Yeah.
Whereas this season, I think I've seen Raheem Morris once, maybe twice, through the first 4 episodes. So
Yeah. Definitely go check it out though. QB's on Netflix. Our team, is on there. And I will just warn you, it will take you through the emotional roller coaster that was the Falcons season last year. It was kind of hard to watch, to be honest.
the highs and the lows.
Yeah,
That's elevators right there. Look,
the whole
watch quarterback.
yeah.
It is the elevator segment.
But we are close on time, so we'll call it. I know you got obligations you got to get to. I'm sad we didn't get to, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit on the next episode. But some of the QBs, the stuff with Jared Goff and Joe Burrow, I'd like to get your insight and your opinions on. So you have homework. Go finish the series, and you guys at home have some homework as well. Go check it out. I would love to see what your thoughts are on our backup quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons going into this season. We are 63 days from kickoff, my friends. So get
Mm,
excited. Football is almost back. Training camp will be starting up at the end of this month. We're gonna go out there at least for a day. Peep the squad. Maybe chat it up with some Kirko chains if we can.
yeah,
But while you're at it, just hit that like, subscribe, comment, and we appreciate y'all listening. Here's to another one. Catch you on the flip.
catch you on the flip, man. Peace.
Peace.